Hi, everyone. Welcome back to session 2 titled COVID-19 and the Acceleration of Digital Transformation in Procurement. So in this session, we are going to feature 2 case studies. The first one is going to focus on the use of the EBRD ECEPP system on the Suez Oil Processing Company project in Egypt. And the second case study is going to focus on accelerating the use of EGP tools to facilitate project procurement. After the case studies, I will moderate a discussion between our 2 presenters. As with all of our sessions, do keep in mind, if you have any questions or comments, please use the Q&A feature that you can find at the bottom of the Zoom application and simply submit your questions and or comments. We will be moderating and taking a look at that list and doing our best to answer as many of those questions as possible. So I will now introduce our first presenter. We are honored to have Richard Gargrave, the Associate Director and Head of Innovation for Procurement Policy and Advisory Department at the EBRD. Richard has 40 years of experience in public procurement and project management, serving various organizations, including the World Bank, Crown Agent Services, and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. At the EBRD London headquarters, Richard serves as the Associate Director with the Procurement Policy and Advisory Department. In addition, as Head of Innovation, Richard leads the concept, design, development, and implementation of the SaaS contract for the EBRD's client e-procurement portal, now operational in 27 countries with projects worth over 15 billion euros using the system for project procurement. Throughout his career, he has worked on IFI financed projects in over 25 countries throughout Central and Eastern Europe, the Middle East, Central Asia, and Africa. Richard will now present his case study on the use of the EBRD ECEPP system on the Suez Oil Processing Company project in Egypt. Richard, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Roger. It was a fantastic introduction. I hardly recognize myself. Can you please enable screen sharing?
All right, our director will take care of that right now.
Okay. So while we're waiting for the screen, okay, we have screen sharing. Thank you. Share. No, I can only share. Okay, have it here. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Roger.
My pleasure.
Fantastic introduction. I had a little speech all written out, so now I'll scrap that and go straight to the presentation. So firstly, I'd like to say a very big thank you to the ADB for inviting us, EBRD, to make a presentation at this very important seminar series and conference. And it's a pleasure to introduce the bank's ECEP system. So this is the EBRD Client e-Procurement Portal, ECEP. And the presentation today is entitled "A COVID Crisis, an Opportunity for Increasing Digitization." And while no one would want to treat COVID as anything other than a global tragedy, and living in UK, which has one of the highest death rates per capita in the world, I know that only too well, it has provided a catalyst for a fundamental and permanent shift away from traditional ways of working in a new digital interconnected world. So during this presentation, I will explain how EBRD has been addressing the COVID challenge by making our project procurement 100% electronic through the use of ECEP on all of our forthcoming projects, how the COVID crisis has accelerated the movement away from traditional paper processes, and how the reluctance on the part of some users has actually substantially changed due to the challenges of this crisis. And I will explain how e-procurement can offset many of the challenges that we have all faced in undertaking traditional tendering through this current pandemic. And then I'll finish with the case study that Roger mentioned on our 230 million project 230 million euro project in Egypt, the Suez Petroleum Energy Efficiency Project, where we switched all 27 contracts to e-procurement midway through a paper process. So as you can imagine, normal e-procurement system is not designed for that type of transaction. Normally you have to do a complete end-to-end process in e-procurement. So I thought that was quite an interesting case study. Also, I realize Egypt is not in the Asia Pacific region, but it is a useful case study in as much as Egypt does not have a tradition of using e-procurement. It doesn't have a well-developed national e-procurement system. And so the users of the system in Egypt were completely unfamiliar with e-procurement. But firstly, just for those of you who are tuning in who may not be familiar with the EBRD and what we do, just a few very quick slides to show you what we are actually about. Doesn't seem to want to change. Okay. So we were established in 1991 after the breakup of the Soviet Union, and we were set up principally to provide funding and privatization to the countries of the former Soviet Union. Since then, we have expanded to quite a number of countries. And we are owned by 69 countries, so we are not a European institution per se. We are not owned 100% by the EU, although the EU is a large shareholder, and also all the EU 28 countries, soon to be one less with UK, of course, unfortunately, but all the EU 28 countries are individual members. We are currently owned by 69 countries, but we have 2 countries who have applied to join, which are Algeria and Iraq, who will be joining us. And we have, in the last few years, expanded the membership into the CMED region. So this on your screen, this is the, I can't tell what colour that is, sort of dark purple colour at the bottom of the screen. So we have Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, West Bank, Gaza, as I say, soon to be joined by Algeria and Iraq. And then we have the countries of the former Soviet Union, plus the Western Balkans, European states that are still borrowing from the bank, Turkey, and then we move over to the region that's more familiar to most of the viewers, which is the Asia region. So from Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyz Republic, Mongolia was also a relatively recent member. And as Roger mentioned, the ESEP system, which we are using at the bank, is now operational in 27 of those. I think there's 29 countries there, or 30 countries. So all of the countries where we have public sector projects are now using the ESEP e-procurement platform.
Richard, very quickly, before you move to the next slide, we are seeing the presenter's view. I think if you go up to display settings near the top, you can swap it. So click on that and put swap. Yep, right there. Click on that. Perfect.
Okay, sorry about that. That means it's difficult for me to move from one screen to the next. I can't see the controls now, unfortunately.
The forward arrow, or you can click on the slide itself, and that should move.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
So let's try that, and indeed it works. So going on from the countries where we work, we are now looking at the type of contracts that are placed by EBRD. So we're not the largest of the multilateral development banks. we lend about 10 billion euros per year, of which about 2 billion euros is to the public sector. And those public sector contracts are the ones that we're talking about here today. So we work in a number of different sectors, from energy through to information and communications technology, municipal environmental infrastructure, natural resources and transport. So we have in the EBRD developed a very wide-ranging green agenda, which covers all of those particular sectors, and a lot of our projects now are based around that green agenda. So we operate in a wide number of sectors. We have a large number of contracts. Nowhere near as large, obviously, as the ADB. We tend to specify on the larger infrastructure projects. So we're placing in terms of 270, 340, if you look at that chart at the bottom of the screen. These are the number of contracts which are placed per year in the public sector project procurement format. And those are the contracts which are placed using the ESEP system. So what is ESEP? So ESEP stands for EBRD Client e-Procurement Portal. And this is a specific e-procurement platform that we've developed at EBRD through an SAS contract, service supplier as a service contract, software as a service contract, sorry, which we signed with BIP Scotland in June 2014. So we have had this system operational in the bank for more than 5 years. And this is used by EBRD public sector clients for procurement in accordance with the EBRD procurement policies and rules. So this is not designed to be a substitute for national systems. This is where the client is borrowing funds from the bank, a loan or grants that we manage, and they are obliged under the terms of our procurement policies and rules to use the EBRD's procurement documents, procurement methodology, functions, and obtain what we call no objections from the bank while they're conducting their procurement under those rules. So as part of this contract, we designed very early on that this was going to be a global operation, and we negotiated with them an enterprise-wide license, which covers unlimited users and unlimited number of transactions. So we now, as Roger was saying, we have a very large number of countries using the system, a large number of buyers and suppliers, and I'll give you some statistics in a minute. So ESEP is a cloud-based system, so it doesn't require any particular special software. You can access it from any browser, even on your phone, which is very useful. And it has been designed specifically for use by EBRD clients. So we have, when we developed the system, we actually spent a lot of time stripping out a lot of unnecessary tools and functions which were not required to conduct EBRD procurement, and have been left with now a very nice, simple, streamlined system which is easy to use without too much training, which is an aspect I'll come back to in a minute. So EBRD procurement, project procurement, is predominantly for large infrastructure projects. You can do the maths yourself. We have about 2 billion of loans per year and only 270 to 300 contracts, which shows you that the value of those contracts tends to be quite high. So I think the largest contract we have in EBRD in the ESEP system is 405 million euros, one single contract. So we are the only IFI at the moment to offer all of its public sector clients a full cycle e-procurement portal. I'll go through the portal and what it does in a minute. So we've been operating since 2015 and starting with a series of pilots in the Western Balkans, gradually expanding the pilot exercise. And since November 19, we decided to make ESEP mandatory for all new projects from 2020 onwards. Now, when we say mandatory, I'm sure you've come across this on other things. When there's mandatory, there's always quite a large call for exceptions. But a decision was made in March 2020 as a result of the coronavirus crisis to make ESEP properly mandatory for all procurement that hadn't yet started, and to encourage other people who had started procurement to move their procurement into ESEP. So we have a short video there, which I'm not sure I can now get into, but if you'd like to have a look at this video, this is a very short video that we have produced principally for suppliers and prospective participants on EBRD tenders. It's a very short video just explaining the benefits of e-procurement for those who may not have used e-procurement before. So you might like to take a look at that. Just some statistics from September, the end of September, just to show that the dramatic effect in the uptake and usage of ESEP since the coronavirus crisis. So obviously this is partly mitigated by the fact that we were intending to go mandatory with e-procurement anyway. But what has happened since we entered the COVID crisis is that people who were perhaps trying to find exceptions to not use ESEP have now fully embraced the prospect of doing e-procurement and are now moving projects to ESEP. I had a quick look this morning. I think even since the end of September, we're now up to 235 projects, almost 17 billion euros. And we have one extra country of operation. So we have a couple of new projects starting in Poland, which is ESEP before. And so we're now up to 27 countries. So you can see from this chart that it took us 4 years to get to 118 live projects and 8 billion euros, and only 9 months to almost double that now to, well, as I say, this morning, 235 projects and 17 billion. So we have actually increased that now by almost 100%. The value of contracts signed, obviously the signing process takes a bit of time to filter through. The project procurement undertaken by the bank can take a while. We tend to have a lot of contracts where we have very complex procurement arrangements. So we have pre-qualification followed by a two-stage evaluation process for works, for instance. And these can take anything from 6 months to 9 months to longer than that, depending on the complexity of the particular project. The planned exercises, so this is the pipeline projects, these have risen already by more than 100%. And we have a really large quantity now of tenders in progress. So if any listeners are contractors or suppliers or consultants, then I would certainly encourage them to check out the ESEP website and look at the notice portal. You can find any of the notices on the notice portal, and as soon as you register with ESEP, you will automatically get alerts, and you will be able to access documents immediately, free of charge, through the portal. A lot of suppliers and consultants are already ahead of you. We have more than 11,000 participants registered in the system. I think it's already nearly 13,000. It really has jumped. And these are from all over the world. So EBRD, unlike ADB, we don't have eligibility restrictions at all. So we have suppliers, would you believe, from as far away as Peru registered, Caribbean, we have some, America, Canada, Japan. So we have a lot of suppliers registered from all over the world, not just in the country of operations. I think 147 countries we are now have some suppliers registered. But it's also important that we do develop the markets in the countries where we are operating, and we have over 6,000 suppliers, consultants from countries of operation. So these range from the large multinationals from Europe straight through to very small companies in Kazakhstan, Tajikistan. We had a tender close yesterday in Kazakhstan where there were, I think, 6 responses from very small companies. This is a very small project, I think, 700,000. Supplier countries, you see that at the bottom, 147. So this is what the ESEP portal looks like. You have the link at the top of the page. So if you type esep.ebrd.com into your browser, and this will work also in Safari or something on your phone, you can get straight through to the ESEP portal. And if you are a supplier, if you are a contractor, then you can get registered very quickly and easily. And we have when I've done these presentations to suppliers, you can see people in the audience actually doing the registration on their phones. So as soon as you register, you can search opportunities and go straight to notices. So what are the issues that have been faced by our clients during the COVID crisis, and how have we managed to leverage the benefits of ESEP to mitigate those circumstances? So on the left-hand side, you'll see that we have tried to identify some issues which have been raised either directly by clients to us, or which we have heard about through the press, or which we have read about through the or heard about in the e-procurement grapevine. So I'll just quickly run through these. You can read through these at your leisure, but one of the problems we were notified about on some of the national systems was there a problem for suppliers getting e-signatures, so they couldn't actually register for tenders. Some national systems shut down in the early stages of COVID, and it wasn't possible to get registered. So ESEP, we don't have e-signatures. It's a very, very simple registration process. No payment is required. Some of the procurement portals were closed during the crisis, or certainly the early days, I guess because of staffing issues mainly. We didn't have any issues with ESEP. It's a web portal, fully accessible throughout the pandemic. We don't have any special software, so that's another issue. There wasn't a need to download anything. One big issue also we heard about was that client computer systems, so whereby they had to try to use national systems using special software. This was not the case for us. We had clients who were even able to provide some no objections and approvals through the system on their phones. Unable to access Office servers. Again, we don't have this issue with ESEP. We have a dedicated client message center. So all client emails between clients and participants for each stage of a tender process is captured in the system. We have one incredibly famous project in Ukraine Railways, where they have 532 messages that have gone backwards and forwards between different clients and between clients and different participants on particular issues to do with that tender process. But all of those messages are available and visible to anybody with access to that project, including the bank. Publishing notices was not possible. Some people still go through the old newspaper publication. In ESEP, the notices are published automatically through the system. The client only has to fill in his address and a couple of fields, and the rest is automatically pre-populated by ESEP and automatically published following the bank's no objection. Participants unable to obtain tender documents. This was a major problem with the airlines closing down, with the courier companies not able to send documents. In ESEP, we don't have any paper. Everything is electronic. If you access the tender notice, there is a link which gives you access to the documents free of charge. So anybody who's registered can get hold of those documents and view those free of charge. Participants unable to obtain their documents, again, this is due to the courier issues. Client offices were closed, so they couldn't look at the paper documents. We had a lot of evaluations held up because the evaluation committees couldn't get to the paper documents. Here in ESEP, everything is online, everything is available to anybody with access to the project, so the evaluation committee can see the documents offline, or online rather. Site visits were not possible, again because we have a message centre and we have direct communication between the clients and the participants. We're able to do virtual site visits with a link to a Zoom call, or we were able to upload drawings, additional drawings or other information in lieu of a site visit. Post and courier I've already mentioned, but one particular issue there is to do with bank guarantees. So this is usually the question I get asked at all these presentations: what do you do about bank guarantees? So in ESEP, this is the only paper document which has to be provided, but it doesn't have to be provided in time for the tender opening. So the bank can issue a bank guarantee. It can be scanned and uploaded by the participant as part of their offer, or they can issue an e-guarantee. And then this is part of the electronic bid submission through ESEP. And that can be followed up with the paper document, and the paper document then will be compared to the scan, and people will make sure that the document is the same as the scan. So I'm sure I'll get some questions on that later. I normally do. Client is unable or unwilling to accept deliveries. This was quite an interesting one. We had a few clients at the early stages of the COVID crisis refusing to accept tender documents that have been delivered from particular countries where there was a higher COVID case count, which actually invalidated a lot of the tenders. A lot of tenders had to be cancelled because of that. So obviously in ESEP everything is electronic. There's electronic bid submission, no paper, so that's not an issue. Also the public tender openings, again, some tenders had to be cancelled because they couldn't conduct the public tender opening. In ESEP, this is fully automatic, so it doesn't require any people. The system closes the tender at exactly the date of tender closing and issues a set of minutes automatically. The no objections are provided through the system electronically, so it doesn't need authority and permission separately. Draft contracts are sent electronically, so again, there's no issue with paper. Contract amendments are also managed through the system, so again, that lack of paper was not an issue. And the last one also is caused a bit of problem with data collection. So obviously with people not being able to go to the office, they couldn't provide data on the paper formats that were under evaluation. in ESEP, all that data is available to anybody. People can generate reports on all manner of data. Moving swiftly on, because I can see I'm running out of time. During the height of the crisis, we were approached by many clients asking us if they could actually switch their paper processes through to electronic. So these were procurement processes which were already in progress. So the documents have been issued at least for pre-qualification stage or the first stage of a two-stage process. So we had 42 tender exercises worth €500 million, largest tender of which was 142 million. And a wide variety of countries, including Belarus, Bosnia, Egypt, which we're coming to, North Macedonia and Ukraine, to name but a few. I'm sure there was more than that, but we managed to use the benefits of ESEP to actually be able to adapt the system sufficiently that we could actually proceed with the documents that have been issued and proceed with the tenderers that had been invited. And we produced a set of guidance notes specifically for this for our clients to help them navigate that process. So going on to the case study now, which is the Suez project. So as I say, this is a very interesting project from our perspective, seeing as Egypt is a relatively new client of the bank, and they don't have a well-functioning e-procurement system at the national level in Egypt. They do everything the traditional way, in paper, with very, very large evaluation committees. And they were quite reluctant at the start to embrace ESEP, let's say. But as we entered into the crisis, they had a very, very serious COVID crisis in Egypt, and specifically in Cairo. And we were approached by some of the clients in Egypt to transfer projects, one of which was this Suez project. So just to show how it works, so in ESEP, the bank actually sets the project up. So the client doesn't need to do anything. So we actually set the project up in the bank in accordance with the board approved project details. So here you can see this is a €232 million project for Suez. And when the clients access ESEP for the first time, they go straight into their projects where they have authority to access. The second stage is the bank sets up the procurement plan and sets up the procurement method, normally which is in agreement with the procurement plan. But in this case, because we had already started some of the processes, we were able to adapt the procurement method selected to match the stage that the tender was at. And I know the text is quite small on this slide, but if you manage to view these slides and increase the size, you will be able to see in the third column there is the status. So it shows you what status these are at, and all these ones are closed tenders. I have to be a bit careful because obviously the procurement plan does include some confidential information, which is why I'm showing you the tenders that have actually already closed. The next column shows the procurement method, which is set up. So in ESEP we have, I think it's 13 different procurement methods, which are ranging from single open tender for goods or works through to two-stage goods and works with pre-qualification, or two-stage consultancy with expressions of interest. But what we've done here in this particular project, they had 27 separate lots, and every single one of these lots, because of the nature of the specialized equipment for For the refinery, the procurement method selected was open two-stage with pre-qualification. So all of the tenders, all of these 27 tenders had either passed the pre-qualification stage or were already in the pre-qualification stage and had to be restarted. So what we did, where they had already processed through the pre-qualification stage, we set up, for instance, an open tender two-stage process. But because the bank are managing these procurement methods, we were able to suppress the publication of the notice and directly invite the pre-qualified suppliers from the pre-qualification list that had already been agreed by the bank. In other cases, we were able to, where the pre-qualification had already gone through and the first stage tender in some cases had already gone through the technical evaluation, we have another method, what we call repeat tendering, which gets you down to the pricing element. So this is where we have already got the list of tenderers that have submitted offers. They've already passed technical evaluation. So we were able to set up a repeat tendering exercise, which just then can upload the documents relevant to that last final pricing stage and invite the tenderers to submit a priced offer. So we were able to manage all of those 27 lots and upload the specific documents, the paper documents that had already been issued and approved by the bank for the various stage where they were at. So the advantage we have in ESEP is it's very, very flexible. And the reason it's flexible is because the bank do control the input and output of that system. So we can authorize directly what is happening in that system. So we were able to delete the standard documents which are normally preloaded and upload the already pre-approved set. And so the client was able to use the system with very minimal training. So they really embraced the system as it happened. They were very, very pleased. And they're actually moving their new project now into ESEP to conduct the next stage. Next slide, because I know I'm going to run out of time. So we have already awarded 2 contracts. So we have, you can see that 2 contracts have been signed. One already has, you can see on the last column is the actual contract value. Column before that is the planned contract value. So we have one contract there, 8.6 million budget, and the actual contract value is 5 million euros. So quite substantial cost savings on that particular contract, which we hope to see reflected throughout that entire project. Well, on this page, very quickly, you can see the detail that's available to the users. You have the list of users, which is managed by the client themselves. We have the general procurement notice, a set of user guides and user videos in 3 languages, so the 3 official languages of the bank. We have a very useful unread message center with warning notes to tell the client when he has a message from one of the participants. And you have the no objection record, so everybody can see that anything is approved. And just something about levels of competition. So we do have quite good levels of competition in the system. And in fact, we have a very good example from a co-finance project we're doing with ADB in Mongolia, which is the first project I think the bank had ever done in Mongolia, which we did through ESEP. And on that particular project, we had over 40 applications for pre-qualification. And this is on a 153 million euro road project, Mongolia Darkhan Road. So we had 40 pre-qualification applications. We then, the client then ended up with 15 tenderers, and is now at the stage of contract placement. And I just had a quick look at that today, and it looks like they are making savings there of at least 30% on that particular project. So that looks to be a very, very good record. So here's just a view to show you what information is available. If you look in the middle of the screen, you have the green message center, which shows you all the messages which have been sent backwards and forwards, and they are available to anybody. And you can also see at a glance what's been no objected, what hasn't been no objected. Okay, moving swiftly on. Key to success, I think, on the Suez project was really that the system is very, very flexible. So we can pretty much manage any project situation, any contract situation, and any tendering situation in the system. And we are able, therefore, to cover issues when there's a crisis. The web-based system, I think, has been perfect for the current COVID crisis. Everyone now is used to working from home on their laptops or at least remotely as far as possible. And the web-based system is very easy to use. I mean, we had serious problems at EBRD actually at the beginning of the crisis because our internal mail system couldn't cope with the number of users that were using it through EBRD remote. So this is where systems like ESET come into their own. We also have process steps very similar to the paper process, so it's very easy to switch from one to the other. The electronic documents in the system are very similar to the paper process and can be replaced very easily. Very simple dashboards, system prompts and alerts tell the clients at any stage what they need to do. So once they finish one action, the system tells them what they need to do next. And one thing that the clients absolutely love is that they cannot take an action without getting a bank no objection. So they know 100% they can't do anything wrong. The bank are not going to come back to them at some stage, so oh, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have done this. They know, they see it at a glance that they are doing the right thing. Very importantly, I want to touch on training because obviously we're doing the WebEx and Zoom calls now. Everyone is, I'm sure, pretty fed up with doing Zooms 24/7, but nevertheless, they are very, very useful for training. We're able to do screen shares like we're doing here. We're able to run through. And what I've actually been doing with some of the clients whose language is not English, their first language, we've been doing these screen shares using Google Chrome and using the Google Translate function to show them the pages in the local language, which does make for some very interesting views at times. But it does mean that they can better understand what's going on in the system. Last but definitely not least is that the dedicated client support is run by EBRD itself. So me and my team, I've got a small team, three of us, including me, we manage all the client support. We're able to masquerade as the clients. We're able to go in and change things for them. We're able to directly assist them with the documentation, with the process. And we pretty much operate 24/7. Some of our clients work weekends, like Egypt, for instance. So I'm getting buzzes on my phone sort of Sunday evenings, can you help me with this? So we really provide very, very good support for clients. And for suppliers, we have a dedicated help desk from the service provider, which is operated on UK office hours. And that is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. According to my watch, that's pretty much exactly 45 minutes. I'm sure Roger's going to tell me I've overrun, but there we are. If you have any questions, you have the email there. We will be taking questions. I know. Roger, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard. We definitely appreciate your time and this case study. I will make sure to share that email since you've invited everybody in the chat shortly. But before I do, it is now my pleasure to introduce our next presenter for this session. In addition to serving as one of the leaders for the production of this special event, Galia Ismakova is a principal procurement specialist here at the ADB. Galia joined the ADB in 1999 and has served in various roles with increasing responsibility, including serving as a unit head for procurement operations in the Pacific, covering 14 Pacific DMCs, and Southeast Asia, where she covered 10 DMCs. In addition, she recently served as the head of the Consulting Services Unit. Galia has driven the e-procurement agenda, leading various ADB initiatives, including technical assistance to the Republic of the Philippines to strengthen Philippine government electronic procurement systems, supervision of case studies on the development of EGP in the People's Republic of China, India, Armenia, and the Philippines as well. Also supervising groups of experts producing the ADB e-government procurement handbook, and the processing and implementation and administration of 2 regional technical assistance projects where she set up and strengthened the Asia Pacific Public Electronic Procurement Network. Galia will now present her case study on accelerating the use of EGP tools to facilitate project procurement. So without further ado, Galia, take it from here.
Thank you very much. Okay, I hope I can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we do.
You can. Thank you. Very warm welcome to participants. We currently have 176 participants from across the globe, and I'm very pleased with the turnout. So I am going to talk a little bit today about how did COVID had an unintended consequence of actually getting us to use more of electronic procurement. So what is the background to the story? The background is that public procurement is traditionally very risk averse and rule bound. When we, as many other MDBs, have moved to principle-based procurement, everyone was clapping and saying, oh, that's great. And how do we actually do principle-based procurement? Where is the guidance note, regulations, or something like this? So in some ways, it's a change of a mindset of how do you actually find the way to make procurement an art of possibilities. So in 2011, we have run our first EGP survey for countries in Asia and Pacific. And what we found out is that only 1/3 of developing member countries at that point of time started implementing EGP. By 2017, 2/3 of the countries already made the shift. So we are just finishing the survey for 2020, and those countries who have not yet submitted the responses, please do so that we can count everyone who made the shift. What else happened? Since March 2020, when almost everyone went into the simultaneous lockdowns, almost every country in the world, what we found out is that quite a few people thought, okay, this virus will go away possibly by April, maybe by June. So maybe we shouldn't be worrying about too much of delay in procurement. But somehow it still stays with us and creates havoc in how we do things. So we now need to learn how to live with a new normal. So the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the adoption of digital commerce and digital procurement. We just now listened to Richard Gargrave presentations on how did EBRD moved number of paper-based procurement into the electronic platform. So things that could be unimaginable about a year ago did happen. So, and many countries would still have this idea, is it a nice to have thing? Should we actually have it? I have responded to some questions in the chat, like, what are the disadvantages of having a GP? Or what are the advantages of having a GP? Okay, I'm obviously a person who is very biased because I can name mass of advantages of having a GP, and I cannot find any disadvantages of not having it, apart from possibly when the grid goes down. But if the electric grid goes down, possibly you wouldn't be able to do paper-based procurement either. Okay, so what is the development challenge that COVID-19 brought to us? COVID-19 have brought to governments across the globe number of challenges. First of all, the public put a lot of expectations to the governments. First of all, the governments need to continue providing essential services. Now we actually see people being called essential when they work for the post, for utility, or for the supermarket, or for the gas station. So all of a sudden, people whom we undervalue before became very valuable. Governments were also expected to step in to procure life-saving medical equipment, personal protective equipment, testing facilities, and emergency food supply. So later on in this presentation, we will be later on in this conference, we will be talking about how ADB actually stepped in to help the governments to do this. Lastly, but obviously last but not the least, every member of the public expects the governments to have an economic recovery plan. And we are talking about L-shaped recovery, V-shaped recovery, and whatever shape recovery you're talking about, almost every recovery plan has a substantial infrastructure component. And what does it mean? This infrastructure will need to be procured. And if needs to be procured, and most likely on a borrowed funds, because the amount of public borrowing actually skyrocketed this year. Every government would need to be accountable to the general public how this money was spent. And there is no better way to get accountability for the public spend than to have electronic procurement. So what we talk about is a development challenge in a way, but there is something also called delivery challenge. And delivery challenge is about how you actually achieve it. Like, for example, in terms of procurement, and COVID-19 actually put the procurement into the spotlight. Somehow it became one of the most critical professions and most valued professions as well. The delivery challenge is about that substantial number of sophisticated e-government procurement solutions are not built with a view of foreign participation in cross-border trade. And guess what? Sometimes this personal protective equipment and sometimes this essential medical supplies are not produced domestically and needs to be procured from across the border. Some ADB member countries do not have any government procurement system or only recently started piloting its use. So there is some kind of a reluctance of using something that is not yet proven. There were substantial number of questions about ICB, International Competitive Bidding or Open Competitive Bidding procedures, and why ADB and World Bank has not yet allowed use of domestic electronic procurement systems. So prior to COVID-19, they were mostly procured using paper-based procedures where physical presence of bidders was required. Why it was so? A lot of, again, EGP solutions are actually designed with a view of domestic market and create some barriers for participation for foreign bidders. And that's why organizations such as ADB or World Bank actually did not allow use of these domestic systems in the past. Normal bidding procedures and logistics became impossible. Imagine there are lockdowns, border closures, and restrictions in public gatherings. So you cannot send your bid with couriers because couriers do not deliver or deliver with delays. No one is in the office to actually receive courier delivery. You can't sell documents to anyone because no one can visit you or because your office is closed. And a number of things that we have somehow got accustomed to became impossible. While they became impossible, the possibility of electronic procurement and use of digital communication actually created ways on how we can overcome these challenges. So what are potential solutions if the country has e-procurement system which is not yet approved for ICB or ICB? One of the solutions which was obvious in March and not so obvious already by April is wait and see, postpone and delay. Kind of, okay, it will go away and we will go back to normal. You can also modify existing system and procedures. Again, the question is how difficult it is to remove barriers to entry, how difficult it is to remove requirements for physical documentation and certification. And what do you do if you can't see the physical document or you can't actually have it notarized? You may consider post-qualification and verification at a time when the contract award is about to be decided. You can replace requirements for bid security with bid securing declaration. Okay, we talk and talk and talk and talk about bid securities, and a number of countries have made substantial innovations in connecting local banks to the e-procurement systems where you can get your bid security issued by the local bank and it talks to the e-procurement system like it does in Mongolia. And you can say, yes, this particular bid has a bid security. However, almost everyone forgets that bid securing declarations that are part and parcel of our standard bidding documents have been actually introduced specifically when electronic government procurement was considered in early 2000s. Then the decision was, okay, if we cannot get the bid security from the bank, what can it be, like what kind of document that will create enough deterrent from submitting idiotic bid or the bids that you wouldn't honor? And one of these tools is a very elegant document called bid securing declaration. You can use additional technological solution to supplement or substitute physical openings. You can do it through Skype, Teams, Zoom, WebEx, okay? There might be some other particular solutions that I have not put in this list. And to avoid controversy, I put etc. You can actually record majority of meetings using this particular platforms, and this is what I do right now, recording this on this session as well. You can create digital records. You can create video records of bid opening procedures. If the bid opening is automatic, like it is in ADB consultant management system, all the bidders receive automated notification where it actually says this is a result of the bid as opened. And you can proactively design solutions for potential complaints. You can think about, these are my risks. Okay, what do I do? How do I mitigate them? Like, for example, if there are specific reasons that I believe that foreign bidders cannot participate, and the government says that they can, but I cannot verify it right now, and at the same time, I do not want to stop procurement, what can we do? We can put information in the documents, in the bid documents, specifically asking to escalate this particular problem if and when it arises. So the worst that can happen is that we can cancel this bid. We can cancel this bid procedure. The best that can happen, that things can go forward and procurement gets done. So potential solutions if the country does not have a e-government procurement system. If procurement package is funded by ADB, request that ADB provides you with an interim solution. We are here to help, okay? I have been answering emails practically 18 hours a day since COVID started, with people asking, can I use email? Why can't you use email? Why it is difficult, and what can we do? You can sign up for software as a service. And we talked a lot about software as a service. EBRD system is software as a service. And we have two software service solutions that ADB provides to its borrowers. One is ADB sponsored SaaS that is provided by Intent, on which you will receive more information in session number 3. We also have procured another SaaS solution for as a stopgap measure for project procurement, and this is with Tenderlink. So what is the differences between these two SaaS softwares that ADB provides to the borrowers? One is that Tenderlink can only be used for ADB funded procurement, but Intent can be used for any procurement that the government undertakes, including procurement by World Bank, including procurement for using its own resources or any other funds that they might have. Okay, so I already covered replacing requirements for bid security with bid security declaration, and additional text solutions I also covered. Okay, so what ADB can do for you? ADB can approve extended use of national EGP platforms, provided we mitigate the risks, provided the risk are identified and we have a plan. What are we going to do with them? We are referring borrowers to Intent software as a service solution and their onboarding, to which they can use irrespective of the fund source. We provide centralized portal with Tenderlink to facilitate bank-funded procurement. And for consulting services packages, it is possible to delegate issuance of RFP and receipt of proposals to ADB. Okay, while this might not be the most elegant of solutions, but considering that ADB consultant management system is already used for advertising consulting opportunities by the borrowers, it might be a stopgap measure for some. You can also consider use of low-tech solutions such as secure email. However, be aware that this is possibly the least preferable solution, because it's much easier to hack someone's emails than to hack a software service, a procurement portal. It is also a matter of how much the suppliers actually trust people operating the email account. So there are possibilities of mitigating this risk requiring encryption and password protection of bits. But again, personally, for me, this is the least useful of solutions. So I just put some kind of screenshots of how does these solutions, especially software as a service, looks. I encourage people who are interested in intent to attend session number 3, or if for some reason this particular session is outside of your time zone and you need to go to sleep, you can rewatch it later, maybe when you are away. So Tenderlink is another SaaS solution, which was actually another solution that we considered when we awarded the contract to Intent. And it was a cheaper solution, but it did not cover as many countries as Intent did. And Intent won on this basis the bid that we had in 2016. However, a lot of our borrowers in the Pacific are using Tenderlink, using their own resources. And this includes some of the clients with the slowest internet speed. So that's why we did consider actually as a stopgap measure signing contract with Tenderlink. And 20 tenders have been actually processed there since July 2020. And ADB provides onboarding support to ADB funded projects to actually use this for free. So this particular hub also offers free supplier registration, and it offers other solutions such as forum for clarifications, and it also provides videos for both the procuring agencies and the suppliers. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. And I am turning over to Roger. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Galia. We appreciate your help and your insights. So at this point, I'm going to welcome back Galia and Richard so that we can take the next about 20 minutes to discuss some of the questions that have already been presented. Richard, thank you so much. I noticed you've been active in the chat, addressing some of the questions that have come up. Since you were just addressing this, this one question that came in from Chris Smith, do you care to talk a little bit about it, just while it's fresh in your mind?
Okay, which question was that?
This is the one, has there been an improvement in the project implementation timescales, and have you seen more compliance by contracting authorities and economic operators in adhering to the EBRD's procurement guidelines and tender contracting?
Okay, I can see it now. I couldn't see that was from Chris. Hi, Chris, if you're watching. Yeah, that's a very good question. It's obviously a bit difficult to compare like for like when you're procuring large infrastructure projects. If you're procuring something like books or desks, it's very easy to measure the timescales one against the other. Mm-hmm. In the answer that I posted on the chat, what I have said is that the electronic parts of the process have been greatly speeded up. So where this is to do with the notices, this is to do with the documents, this is to do with the minutes, receipt of documents, clarifications. All these parts that are automated or semi-automated are much quicker. Where the delays are occurring is still where you need the manual interventions, notably during the evaluation stage. I mean, there's no getting around, if you're building a bridge or if you're building a railway tunnel, there's no getting around the fact that you need to do a very full, detailed, thorough evaluation, whether it's electronic bid submission or whether it's paper bid submission, and that's where you have the time delays. But I've just had a chance to read his question a bit more thoroughly, and there was two parts to that first question. The other one was about compliance. And this is where ESET really comes into its own, because as I said, I think in the presentation, the client cannot do anything majorly wrong. I hate to say, I hate really to say that, he's going to prove me wrong now, but the system does not allow them to do a wrong step in the process, let's put it like that. The bank has to provide a no objection at every stage, and the system will not allow the client to move to the next stage until that no objection has been given. So for instance, with the notice, the system will pre-populate the notice, the client will check it, will press a button to submit for no objection, the bank gets a notification, they review it, the bank presses a button to provide no objection, and the notice is automatically published. So, and only when that's done, then a banner will come up on the client side to say, okay, you've done the notice, you know, you need to make sure you've done the documents, or vice versa. So the clients really like it. I mean, when you actually see in the bid history, in the no objection history, how many no objections are issued on a project, it is quite staggering. I mean, some of the big projects, I mean, this famous one in Ukraine where we had 563 messages in the message center for one tender process. A lot of those are clarifications which require a bank no objection. And I think they're up to something like 250 no objections already. So it can be very substantial. So yes, it has really helped with compliance. And I must also add, while I've got that opportunity, that this has also enabled us to cut down on complaints, because we don't have any complaints now about bid openings. People coming with their documents late, people querying how the bid openings were made. We don't have any complaints about that. We have very few complaints about documents. We have very few complaints about document handling and not receiving information. And where we do have complaints, because we have access to everything in the system, we are able to do a full forensic analysis. So we can look at everything, not only on our side, but also on the supplier side. So we have given access to our Chief Compliance Officer department. We had a couple of fraud allegations on projects, and we're able to go in and review everything. And we can see exactly what's been submitted, who was working in the system, who was doing this particular task, what they were doing. And so I think that enables us to have comfort. It also puts a marker, I think, out there that people know that Big Brother is watching. And it, I think, has improved markedly the quality, let's say, of the procurement transactions.
So I wanted to, there was one question that came up earlier while you were presenting, Richard, that I almost wanted to interrupt you just to get it in there, because I thought, because I thought it'd be perfect when you were talking about this, but you addressed it quickly in the chat. It was around the role of signatures and having the signature, you know, before or after when the bid is won. And yes, you had a conversation with someone, and there was a follow-up to that in terms of, it seems like, you know, Deepak had shared here, forfeiture of their bid guarantee if they fail to sign the contract is the business part of it. And so I think they were, so maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on this, because I think this is important, especially when offices are closed and it's really hard to move about and get to different places.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the question I get asked the most about bank guarantees and bid securities and signing. And as I think I mentioned in the presentation, we've now signed over €1 billion of contracts. You know what it's like with contract signature and tendering, you know, there's no problem at all until there's a problem. So, you know, 95% of the projects will go through, someone will be awarded the tender, you know, they want to sign the contract, so they will sign it. It's only in the odd few cases where, for whatever reason, you know, there's been a major crash. We had a couple of companies went bankrupt, things like this, which you can't really control. And they didn't want to sign the contract. So we do have a choice there. The contract is signed offline, so we don't have e-signatures at all in the system. We made a conscious decision not to do that. Why? Because we are operating in 27 different countries. Everybody has a different rule about e-signatures. Some countries need qualified e-signatures. Some countries need e-signatures which can only be obtained by companies working within that country, for instance, which is against the rules of the bank. So, so cut a long story short, we decided to stick with the good old manual signature of contracts. But if you have a signature at that stage, it's less of a problem because you only need one company to sign a document. The client can sign it, send it off, get it back signed. It's not usually a problem. And in accordance with the conditions of the tender documents, the contract is actually formed when the notification of award is sent out, which is electronic. So we haven't had any problems at all with signing of contracts. And if they refuse to sign, then the bank guarantee is called, whether it's an e-guarantee or it's a paper guarantee, or even if you've only got the scan of the guarantee. Because in accordance with the UDG 758 regulations, you only need to claim if you've got the bank guarantee number.
All right, thank you so much for that. You know, you mentioned that this is a question that you get asked a lot, so I'm glad you got to address this one.
And it's very, very important.
Of course. I see here a question from Michael, and this came in, Galia, during your presentation. I'm sorry, I think this one's directed at you. Some countries practice that a bidder pays a tender fee before accepting the tender to be submitted. How would an e-procurement know that a bidder pays the fee prior to accepting the tender bid? Can you please explain?
Okay, well in ESEP it's completely free of charge. So we don't charge anything, nobody's charged, there's no registration fee, there's no bid document fee, there's no bid submission fee. There are no fees paid by anybody to anybody apart from EBRD pay for the system out of the goodness of our hearts. We pay for this system ourselves and give it free of charge to our clients, or give access free of charge to the clients. So in ESEP, it's not a problem.
Okay. I will try to answer the question about the payment for the bid documents. First of all, we discourage countries from charging fees for using electronic procurement systems. However, we understand that some countries actually finance the procurement system through use of these charges. So what we also found out, for example, in the Philippines, is that when the use of these charges was a prerequisite for downloading the bid documents, the participation was actually quite small. So imagine you are looking to participate in a certain bid and you need to pay to actually find out if you're qualified or not. So a lot of people would say, I'm not going to pay because maybe I'm not qualified, and this actually put quite a barrier to bidders' participation. So what we suggested to the government of Philippines, and I understand this was implemented, is that anyone could actually download the bidding documents for free, but if they want to submit the bid, they need to pay. And there are certain some of the systems may actually have different payment systems for the bid documents. This can be per document, it can be based on membership, it can be, there are a number of ways how it actually can be done. But in summary, if it is at all possible, we would suggest that the government do not charge for the downloading of bid documents and for participation in the tenders.
Thank you for that. Another question here that came in earlier, this one's for Richard, during your presentation. It was around the idea of, does the e-procurement system allow for automating evaluation when a tender is closed?
I mean, that's a very good question. Again, we decided not to have e-evaluation. Why? Because a lot of our clients, we have to have a system that can be used by everybody, from the smallest municipality in Jalalabad, Tajikistan, it's not in Tajikistan, is it? Kyrgyzstan. Anyway, to the smallest municipality in some of the countries, to larger operations elsewhere. And the one thing they do have in common is that they all have pretty much still retains the sort of historical traditional evaluation committees. So the evaluation committees have to be in charge, and that they used to like to be in charge also of the tender documents and the notices and everything else. So this allows them to still have a role in the most important aspect of the procurement, which is the evaluation. So the evaluations are still done offline. So the bank has its traditional evaluation report format, which is probably very similar to the one used by ADB. But we have a traditional evaluation format which they complete and then upload into the system, which is then submitted for no objection. So we don't have automated evaluation. We are considering doing that for consultancy contracts. But again, the beauty of ESEP at the moment is that it's flexible. Once you try to automate things like the evaluation process, you then can't be flexible. And we have had situations before when, for instance, we were trying to automate the contract award notices, and then people want to change the quantities, they want to change the aspects of the sort of contract award. There's some other issues, and we found actually that we've rolled back on some of the automation that we had planned in order to keep the system as flexible as we can.
Thank you for that, Richard. There was another question here, and let's see here. How is ESEP put together in countries using their own e-procurement systems? And how do local suppliers respond in these countries?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question as well. I mean, we are not replacing the local system. So the clients will use the local system to do their local budget procurement. So anything from the state budget that they get or the municipal budget, they would still use the local system if there is one. But if the project is an EBRD project, they're obliged to use our rules and procedures. We do have the possibility to allow clients to use national systems where we believe that they will be able to conduct procurement in a manner that meets the principles of the bank's procurement policies. So one issue, for instance, is the open eligibility. So we could not allow somebody, even for small contracts, to use a national system that did not allow bids from any other country. And that is quite a big issue in some of our countries of operation, for instance.
Thank you for that. And there was a question there, Galia, that you were just addressing. If you wanted to just comment quickly on that one.
Okay, there was a question. Are there any other software as service system apart from Intent and Tender Links that we recommend? And I would say that probably I should not be in the business of recommending anyone. specifically. But Areva and Coupa are market leaders in e-procurement. However, they may or may not be suitable for the purpose of public procurement. They are more suitable for corporate procurement. I can also tell you that it was an exciting development that Alibaba went into e-government procurement space when they actually signed up a partnership agreement with, if I'm not mistaken, with Shenzhen, where they actually provide a public procurement platform specifically for shopping. So I would say watch the space.
Thank you very much for that. So as we get ready to conclude here, I wanted to get that takeaway, that item, that one thing that if people remember only one thing from that presentation, what's that key idea that you really want them to take away from each of your presentations? And of course, you know, given that they're so timely, given what's going on right now in the world. So Richard, I'll start with you. What is that one key idea that you want everybody to take away?
And I think the key issue is not to be afraid of change. You know, even though change is forced upon you by circumstance, as it has been in the COVID crisis, don't be afraid of change. You know, change is good, so they say. And I think the clients of the bank who have embraced change, and they really do embrace change as soon as they get used to using an electronic system, you know, there's no turning back, really. They absolutely love it. You know, I hope they're telling the truth, and I'm sure they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Galia, tell us, what is that one big idea that you want people to take away from your presentation?
One big idea? Okay. Richard, you stole my idea.
Sorry about that.
Okay, my big idea is that don't be afraid to ask. You know, if you have an idea and if you think that it may or may not work, don't hold to it. You know, come and discuss it with us and see what happens. Maybe we come up with a better solution. Maybe you will come up with better solution. And again, don't be afraid to change and don't be afraid to continuously innovate. Because, okay, personally, one of the things that I still cannot do, I cannot ride a bicycle. Imagine this. However, I do like this kind of an image that if you are life is like riding a bicycle. Once you stop moving, you die. So maybe I should really learn to ride a bicycle.
Might
not hurt. But thank you so much for that. All right, great. Well, thank you both for your insights. Galia, very quickly, how may people reach out to you, or how do you recommend they connect with the ADB around any of the support that you offered and mentioned in the presentation?
First of all, you can get in touch with us. If you are an ADB client, you can get in touch with us through Apple Yuson, who is your contact for this conference, and she will forward it to me and we will figure it out. Obviously, while I look after e-procurement agenda in ADB, I do not handle every country or a single country. Yeah. Actually, but I do coordinate quite a lot of efforts that ADB does.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. So I will make sure to get that contact information in the chat. So everyone, do stay tuned and you'll find that shortly. Also, Pardon?
I'm also on LinkedIn.
And you can also find Galia on LinkedIn. So do make sure. So I will make sure to share all of that through the chat. So do keep, stay on top of the chat and you'll find all the information that you need. Thank you again, both. We definitely appreciate your time and your insights. This concludes our second session for the day. We are getting ready now for our short break, and we'll come back in about 30 minutes for our next presentation, which will be our final one, focused on software as a service, speaking of that question that was asked. So take this time, respond to emails, maybe eat a quick meal, whatever it might be, so that you can come back and be fully focused on our next session, and keep the Zoom channel open. You'll be able to see the time remaining and also enjoy a few videos from some of our partners. In the chat, I'm about to post in the link, the direct link to the agenda, in case you did not have a copy of that. And so you will be able to download the PDF of the agenda, which is now in the chat. So you can go ahead and click on that if you wanted to look at the remainder of the schedule for the next 2 days, and of course for the rest of today. So we will see you in about 30 minutes, and enjoy your little break. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you, Galia.
Thank you.
We're responding to the coronavirus pandemic
with a €1 billion solidarity package.
And there's more to come.
The emergency financing will help companies in our regions.
We will support existing clients.
We'll expand trade finance.
We're providing short-term financing to SMEs.
And we're ready to do much more.
We are with you.
We are with you.
We're with you.
We are with you.
We're with you.
Chinese officials are advising 11 million people at the center of an outbreak of a new virus to stay where they are.
683 lives lost.
سجلت المملكة أول إصابة بفيروس كورونا.
The world is in turmoil.
In 2020, our world changed. A devastating pandemic brought all of our lives to a halt. The EBRD was quick to react.
In Central Asia, the EBRD will act.
With teams across 11 cities,
EBRD will be there for the Turkish economy through these challenges.
EBRD is rapidly responding to the needs of our clients.
Across our regions, we are committing 21 billion euros of support.
Row 741, Bristol Tower, continue to exit to holding point, runway 36 right.
Usually we have about 1,000 flights per day, but during coronavirus, this amount has gone down to 300 to 400 flights. The funds are used for financing the staff costs and functioning of the core operating equipment.
Last year, the EBRD continued our commitment to green financing with record investments.
Idemo odmah.
Stara oprema je bila, stare mašine su bile iz 80. i 90. godina koje su više trošile i teže se radilo sa njima. Sad su ove savremenije, bolje i nove, brže, lakše se čisti snijeg, manje troše i bolje životnu sredinu.
The EBRD continues to work with governments to create transparent and investor-friendly environments.
Как вновь назначенная судья, я была приглашена в УД Кыргызской Республики для прохождения и повышения квалификации по комплексной программе. Заседание объявляется открытым. Прошу присаживаться. Благодаря таким программам, по моему мнению, мнение населения в отношении судебной системы изменилось в положительную сторону.
This year, another record-breaking year. "2021 will bring new challenges. As our regions recover from the coronavirus pandemic, the EBRD will be there, supporting our partners. We will stand by our countries, investing in a greener, more resilient tomorrow. We are with you.
We are with you.
We are with you.
We are with you. We are with you.
This global pandemic has highlighted the urgency to head off the other looming crisis, climate change. We're providing emergency liquidity to keep the lights on in Kazakhstan, clean water flowing in Morocco, and vital supplies moving in Turkey, while scaling up renewable energy and green cities financing too. Sustainable infrastructure is key to the economic recovery. Together, we must create a greener, more inclusive and resilient future.
So how was it possible that we could deliver upon this project so fast and so quickly? Well, it was mainly because we had so many committed stakeholders on board, internally and externally. So I was very fortunate to work with a number of colleagues that committed to this project, because we all knew that testing was the most critical investment for the country at this time. And externally, we had the same type of commitment with support from Department of Health, Department of Foreign Affairs, Department of Finance, Department of Defense, and of course the hospital, Poseo Bielinga.
This laboratory is going to increase the testing capacity of the Philippines by 3,000 tests a day. That's 10% of the country's testing capacity target. And so it's an extraordinarily important initiative. It's an absolute critical piece of the country's strategy for creating a new normal situation in the wake of this crisis.
Is indeed a significant support in the national government's objective or goal to ramp up its daily testing output from an initial 300 per day, and now we're doing 7,000, and hopefully with this capacity we will be able to do 10 to 11,000 and continuously improve and increase our daily testing output.
Today we
are actually focusing on the diagnosis of COVID-19 disease. But in our vision, this molecular pathology lab will also be a center for as a subnational referral lab for other emerging infectious diseases.
We follow a rigorous and competitive process in choosing suppliers that can provide quality products and services. We have contracted with companies from around the world, including medium-sized companies from developing many countries. We've also contracted partner organizations that can provide logistics and quality control.
Из-за пандемии пришлось одну из точек закрыть, отправить сотрудников по домам, выплачивая им минимальные суммы. И планы на этот год у нас вернуться хотя бы к 50% от той прибыли, которая у нас была до начала пандемии.
From the very first days, government started supporting SMEs, cutting taxes, providing tax deferrals, as well as banks providing a lot of support to the SMEs. During these difficult times, Asian Development Bank has been very helpful to us. Recently approved $500 million budget support loan will help us a lot in providing further support during these difficult times.
The program will help expand the government's social and childcare assistance to nearly 250,000 additional low-income households. It will also strengthen the health system capacity, including the frontline medical workers, by equipping the medical facilities with ventilators, testing kits, and personal protective gear.
This program provides vital support to the government's budget and COVID response plan. We continue to stand with Uzbekistan as it gets back on the path to growth.
I think across all sectors, we have a very sort of dynamic and open relationship with ADB. And I feel that this relationship will continue to grow from strength to strength.
Over the last 25 years, Cambodia's strong economic growth has led to significant progress in poverty reduction and human development. But, like the rest of the world, Cambodia is now facing unprecedented challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. So far, Cambodia has recorded one of the lowest rates of COVID-19 infections in Southeast Asia. Cambodia's Ministry of Health was quick to institute school and university closures, shutter non-essential businesses and services, restrict air and cross-border travel, and roll out health service information for the country's 16 million plus population. An economic slowdown is now putting pressure on poor and marginalized groups that threatens to push an additional 1.3 million people into poverty.
ប្រាប់ដូចថាមានណារោគឆ្លងមូទៅយើងបារម្ភបាត់បង់ភីវច្រើនពេលខ្លាចពេលយើងលក់ឲ្យភីវលក់អីទៅយើងខ្លាចឆ្លងដល់អនាគតទៅមុខទៀតដឹងមិនណាចាំមើលសឹកថ្ងៃវាកាន់ពិបាកច្រើនតែការងារក៏អត់យ៉ាងខ្ញុំហើយឲ្យយើងអត់ចេះអក្សរមិនដឹងទៅរកការងារណាបានធ្វើទៅមុខទៀតមិនដឹងរកឲ្យបានឲ្យកូនហូបបាន
The COVID-19 pandemic could lead to an estimated 390,000 job losses in Cambodia during 2020. The tourism sector has been the hardest hit, with a 90% drop in air passenger volume and a 99.5% decline in monthly revenue to the country's world-famous Angkor temples.
Most people work for tourism, so when the COVID-19 happened, tourism stopped coming here, then people lost the job. So we worried about how to make a living.
The pandemic is already having an impact on Cambodia's economic growth.
ADB expects Cambodia's economy to contract by 5.5% this year and move back to positive growth in 2021. The government of Cambodia has prepared a strong policy response, including provision of income support for the poor, wage support for workers, tax relief for businesses, especially small and medium-sized enterprises. We at the ADB are confident that these measures will help minimize the negative impact of COVID-19 on families and firms. With the right reforms, Cambodia's economy will emerge stronger.
ADB has approved $250 million of concessional financing to support Cambodia's COVID-19 response.
The Cambodia Cares program will support the Royal Government of Cambodia's efforts in addressing the social protection requirements, the health response, as well as the revival of small and medium-sized enterprises. Cambodia is only the second country in the Greater Mekong sub-region to receive support from ADB for pandemic response. In addition to this support, ADB is also working with Cambodia in addressing the health sector requirements through the GMS Regional Health Security Project, and ADB will also be working on generating knowledge as well as advising the Cambodian authorities.
ADB is preparing to support Cambodia's recovery with financing, knowledge, and innovation.
At this difficult time, we want to ensure that ADB support responds to the most pressing needs and builds resilience within the Cambodian economy. Our immediate focus is on preventing the spread of the disease and minimizing income losses that lead to poverty. In the longer term, we will support Cambodia's development through economic revival, competitiveness, stronger human capital, better social and environmental sustainability, and improved institutions.
Cambodia's economy is expected to rebound in 2021 if the pandemic ends and economic activity normalizes.
ADB and Palau since 2006 has a really valuable relationship. Since then, they have provided all the assistance that Palau needs for its economic development and policy development as well.
Due to increasing flows of people and goods across borders, the Greater Mekong Subregion is a hotspot for communicable diseases such as rabies, measles, dengue, cholera, and avian flu. But the 6 GMS countries have done well to keep infections of COVID-19 to a minimum, at just over 6,000 at the start of September, according to data from the World Health Organization and the Johns Hopkins University.
The success of GMS countries in controlling COVID-19 is not surprising. The key is years of effort to improve their ability to detect, respond, and control emerging disease threats so they can mitigate a pandemic's human health, economic, and social impact.
Through 2 decades of investments, ADB has supported GMS countries' efforts to develop core health system capacities for responding to public health threats, while simultaneously building a foundation for enhanced regional cooperation on health security. That includes $125 million in loans and grants to Cambodia, Lao PDR, Myanmar, and Vietnam through the GMS Health Security Project. The project allows funds to be quickly reprogrammed to address major public health emergencies. When COVID-19 struck, reallocated funds helped government purchase PPEs, ventilators, bedside monitors, and other equipment. The project also allowed governments to adopt new measures to control COVID-19, including the rapid dispatch of thermal scanners to points of entry. Myanmar, for example, will receive $30 million in additional financing to help the government make immediate investments in 31 district and township hospitals across the country, including capacity building for the health system to respond to COVID-19 and other future public health threats. In May, the project allocated $20 million for Lao PDR to purchase essential medical equipment, including testing kits, medical devices, and ambulances.
ในนั้นมันรวมของที่ ADB เพิ่นช่วยเหลือมาเพื่อว่าป้องกันเฮาเองเป็นตัวอย่างที่ว่าซบมือเป็นงวกเป็นมัดอัดปากเนาะเป็นเสื้อกาวเป็นสิ่งที่ป้องกันเฮาเองเพื่อบ่ให้พยาธินี้ระบาดไปสู่บ่อนอื่นแล้วก็สู่แรงงานที่มาพักเสาอยู่นี่แล้วก็ภาคส่วนเขาเจ้าก็ต้องมีมัดมีหยังใส่เพื่อป้องกันบ่ให้แพร่ระบาดจุดหนักก็แม่นพยาธิโควิด -19 ระยะนี้ที่กำลังระบาดอยู่นี้
The project is in line with the GMS Health Cooperation Strategy, under which countries are committed to improving health systems performance in response to public health threats.
เช่นว่ามีการระบาดแล้วพวกเรามีแต่นั่งแล้วเห็นว่าการระบาดต่างๆอันนี้ได้ลดข้อมูลแรงลงการร่วมมือระหว่างประเทศในรูปในน้ำของนี้คิดให้พวกเราได้ร่วมมือกันใกล้ชิดกันหลายขึ้นใกล้ชิดกันหลายขึ้นและมีประสิทธิผลหลายขึ้นในการควบคุมพยาธิต่อ
With proactive planning and investment in health and other sectors, and the support of partners like ADB, the 6 countries of the Greater Mekong Subregion are meeting the challenge of this pandemic and ensure a faster economic recovery.